Over the last few weeks, I have talked about the best 2025 NFL draft prospects from every Power 4 conference and non-Power 4 conference. In the process of making these videos, I have found a few underrated prospects, and they are who I'm going to talk about today. If you're new, subscribe to the channel as I will be releasing draft content all year long. But for now, I'm Chase Keller, and welcome to 10 potential gems in the 2025 NFL Draft. Enjoy. Before I get into this video, I want to point out that every position only gets one spot on this list, with the exception of offensive line being grouped together. Speaking of, offensive line is what kicks off this video, with Miami offensive tackle Zion Nelson. He was scouted as a potential draft pick over the last couple drafts, but an unfortunate situation got the best of him. After two straight successful seasons in 2020 and 2021, especially as a pass protector, he fractured his knee and missed the rest of the 2022 season. Despite an optimistic approach, he presumably suffered a setback in his injury, and he missed all of 2023 as well. Medical redshirt after medical redshirt, and now Nelson will return to the Hurricanes for his 6th year of college football. Obviously, Nelson's draft stock will take a hit after suffering a massive injury, but there's no ignoring how good he was in 2020 and 2021. He is a superb athlete for the position, with some great pop off the line and a very quick anchor in pass pro. His lateral agility also shows out, as he's really good at covering inside swims and stunts, and even if he does get beat, he has some very good recovery speed. Now, his play strength isn't anything fantastic, and he's not a huge impact run blocker, and that could take a hit to his stock. But if he can return to his pass blocking success, especially after basically missing 2 full seasons, he will be an underrated gem. Moving on to number 9 on this list, we switch over to the defensive side of the trenches and talk about NC State defensive tackle Davin Vann. When I looked at this guy in my top ACC prospects video, I was shocked that his stock wasn't higher. And somehow, some way, it's gone down since I've made that video. In his 4 years with the Wolfpack, he has played over 1,700 snaps with 104 pressures, 66 hurries, and 14 sacks. On top of that, he's improved every year of his career, and he looks to do it again as he goes into his 5th year. Vann is a super powerful player who will use his explosiveness and power to knock blockers back in the run game. He mixes that physicality with a 4.79 40-yard dash and a super agile play style. This allows for him to be a very high upside player. Vann's measurables are also pretty good, but nothing too special to take him to that next level. But Vann seems special enough to be ranked in the current draft order when he's not. Don't be shocked if Vann's stock increases up to day 2 of the 2025 NFL Draft. Moving on to the 8th spot on this list, I have a Big Ten transfer in Wisconsin edge rusher John Pius. As a transfer from FCS William and Mary, he does get the trenches out of the way immediately in this video, but don't undermine him just because he's number 8. Over the last 2 seasons, he has put together 92 pressures and 25 sacks, which proves his worth of jumping from the FCS to a Power 4 conference. He does come in a bit undersized for the position, but he is a phenomenal athlete, and he beats edge blockers off the edge very fast. The athletic traits continue with his great explosiveness off the line and his above average lateral ability, allowing for him to have a wider pass rush arsenal than most. And on top of that, you can't say too much about the competition part of things, because he had a 2.5 sack game against Virginia last season. He's played FBS before. No Context College Football's Liam Blutman even went as far as to say the undisputed best player in the FCS. Disagree? I'm not here to argue. I'm just here to educate. This upcoming season is going to be huge for Pius as he tries to continue to produce at a high level despite going to the highest level of competition. The 7th prospect on this list is the first prospect who would enter the NFL draft as a junior. That player is SMU tight end RJ Maryland. He's also the only player who is not outside the top 200 on mock draft database, and that's why he isn't higher on this list. But at the same time, he truly has the upside to be one of the first 5 tight ends taken in 2025. First off, Maryland is a great receiving threat who has caught 13 touchdowns on top of his 814 yards, and he's only played 2 seasons. He has natural athleticism with some great route running abilities, especially for the position. Not only is Maryland a great receiving threat, he also is a viable blocking threat. He is a willing blocker who can line up as both your typical inline tight end blocker or lining up in the slot and coming inside on zone blocks. Sure, his play strength isn't all that good, but if he can impact just enough as a blocker, he will probably be a 3-down tight end at the next level. I don't think Maryland has any traits that are absolutely game-changing, but he's only played 2 seasons in college football. He's got plenty of time to prove me wrong there. He's only going into his 3rd season, and if he can have a huge career best year, I think he'll be a day 2 pick fairly easily. I won't spend too much time now talking about this player, but UNLV wide receiver Ricky White III makes his appearance in the 6th slot. Last week, he was number 8 on my top 10 non-Power 4 prospects list that wasn't really even my list, but I still talked about him. And since I've already talked about him, here's that video. First off, White may be a little lean, but his catch radius is absolutely massive. That catch radius combined with his physicality and explosive athleticism allows for him to be a phenomenal contested catch receiver. Speaking of that athleticism, he's able to use it to get off the line quick and get downfield fast on deep routes. But that athleticism doesn't particularly translate to good route running, and the most important trait in a wide receiver is arguably White's worst. His route breaks can run slow at times, and he is a bit inconsistent at separating. If that continues this upcoming season, that could turn teams away. But despite that, his mediocre route running doesn't hold back his production. He saw 88 receptions for nearly 1,500 yards and 8 touchdowns in his junior season. If he can return to that same form in 2024, I wouldn't be shocked if White snuck into the 2nd round. If you want to check out the rest of that video, be my guest. But for now, let's continue on with this list. We now enter the top 5, where we have a Colorado player. Some will question if it's even possible for a Colorado player to be a potential gem because they're always in the spotlight. But defensive back Preston Hodge is someone who I'm just going to say is a potential gem. The Liberty transfer was one of the best nickel cornerbacks in all of college football last year, but since he's listed as a safety on mock draft database, that's why he's ranked here as a safety. That versatility is what immediately pops out on his scouting report, as we will probably see a lot of him at every position in the league. He's more built like a safety than a cornerback though, and the physicality that he brings is likely why he is slotted in as a nickel corner. But he also has some solid fluidity and footwork in man coverage, which is where his potential as an outside corner comes in. And then in zone coverage, he has some very good instincts and anticipation. He is just overall very good at reading the quarterback when in zone. Coming from a school with the worst conference in all of FBS, he's got a lot to prove as he goes into the Big 12. But I think he will do so. He's got the traits, now he just needs the performance. So that's a former Liberty player. And now as I go on to number 4, we talk about a current Liberty player in quarterback Caden Salter. In his redshirt sophomore season, he contributed to 44 touchdowns while only throwing 6 picks. He was also one of 3 quarterbacks in all of Division I football that rushed for over 1,000 yards last year. So why isn't he as highly rated as the other guys? Well, for starters, he does play at Liberty, and I just said that they have the worst conference in FBS. He also has some off-the-field character concerns, as he was dismissed from Tennessee's football program after 2 arrests in 6 months. Keep in mind, he was 18 for this. Even with those concerns, it's hard to deny that, when used correctly, Salter can be one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the country. In the passing game, he is a pretty accurate quarterback who does a good job at fitting balls into tight gaps, but he does get a little risky with that sometimes. Progressions is also a strength in his game, as he rarely misses a read that most quarterbacks would make. In the running game, he is a legitimate NFL-ready athlete who has the speed and explosiveness to succeed. His open field vision probably falls as his best trait as a player, and that shows in his 6.7 yards per carry last year. Salter is a fantastic dual threat option, and if he can expand on his redshirt sophomore season, he should easily be an NFL draft pick. As we venture into the top 3, we have a different kind of prospect as I talk about linebacker CJ Hicks out of Ohio State. I say quote unquote different because he has played the lowest amount of snaps of any player on this list, and it's not even close. He has played 75 defensive snaps in his career, and according to PFF, last year was the only year where he registered a defensive snap anyways. In that season, he made 4 tackles on 4 stops and allowed 1 catch for 0 yards. So you might be asking me, CKJ, why is this bum linebacker on this list anyways? First off, he's not a bum, and I'm about to show you why. You see, the former number 10 recruit out of high school has just been stuck behind a loaded Ohio State depth chart, and now he has the opportunity to play. Besides, the only linebacker who he was behind out of high school was LSU's Harold Perkins, who has undergone several position changes. Hicks is ready to show his pure athleticism that shows in his ability to get downfield fast and explode to anticipate a pass. His blitzing ability is also unbelievable, but that's only based off high school as he has played 2 career pass rush snaps. He has also added 20 pounds of mass since going to Ohio State, and he could be 240 pounds by the time the draft rolls around next year. 247 Sports national recruiting analyst Alan Trieu even went as far to say that Hicks is the next Fred Warner. Obviously, the snap count is an issue for now, but with starting snaps coming soon, don't count him out. Do not be surprised if Hicks immediately starts climbing draft boards right after the college football season starts. Now, the second place spot on this list is going to be interesting, as on NFL Draft Buzz, this prospect is ranked 111th, but on the consensus big board, Rutgers running back Kyle Monungai is ranked all the way back in 694th. And since we're going off the consensus big board today, how is this guy so low? Monungai ran for 1,262 yards and 8 touchdowns last season, and he was one of the best running backs in the Big Ten. I remember watching this guy in the Pinstripe Bowl last year when I was just doing my bowl game stuff, and I was amazed on some of the things that he was able to pull off. I immediately noticed his confidence and vision as he was able to find gaps and execute through them, along with becoming a violent runner after he gets through. He forced 73 missed tackles and had 881 rushing yards after contact last season, which were both ranked 8th on PFF. Speaking of rankings, PFF ranked him as the 6th best running back in college football last year of all guys that had at least 100 rushes. Why he may be lower on the consensus big board is because he's not an intimidating athlete by any means. He executes through gaps with solid explosiveness, but his deep speed and lateral ability are both very under average. It's not as bad as the athleticism that I saw in like a Braylon Allen or an Audric Estime, and those guys are a lot bigger than Monangai, so this athleticism just is not up to NFL standards. But nonetheless, Monangai is so violent with the ball in his hands that he absolutely deserves to be higher on the consensus big board. That leaves us with the cornerback position at number 1. And receiving that number 1 spot on this 10 potential gems list is none other than Wisconsin cornerback Ricardo Hallman. Hallman burst onto the scene in the 2023 season, and I compare him to Terrion Arnold in terms of production. And Arnold was a first-round pick in the 2024 NFL draft. The difference is that Hallman decided to stay to capitalize off that big year. That big year included a 7-interception season, which was tied with Notre Dame's Xavier Watts for the most in all of FBS. And somehow, he is still ranked all the way back in 275th on the consensus big board. And it's not like this guy can't translate. The only thing that I can see not translating well is his lean and undersized frame. But Nate Wiggins, Emmanuel Forbes, even Derek Stingley have all been high draft picks out of the last couple years. They all had lean frames coming out of college. Stingley might be an exception, but he was still a little lean. On top of that, Hallman has the athletic profile and the physical profile to be a scheme versatile player at the next level. Let's actually compare him and Arnold's 2023 seasons. Hallman in 2023 allowed 32 catches on 63 targets for 412 yards, 1 touchdown, and 7 interceptions. Arnold allowed 41 catches on 79 targets for 441 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 5 picks. 2 similar seasons and 2 crazy good seasons. And I'll be straight up here. If Arnold can be a first-round draft pick, Hallman should easily be a day 2 selection in the 2025 draft. And that is why he ends up at number 1 on this list. And if his stock stays where it's at, I would be in total shock. Well, those are some of the most underrated prospects in the 2025 NFL draft. Did I miss anyone on this list? Let me know in the comments section below. Wait, are you not subscribed yet? Well, do it now. I release content like this all the time and would really appreciate your support. I'm Chase Keller from Chase Keller Journalism, and I will see you all next time.